Welcome to Present Poetry, a podcast where we sit back, relax, and enjoy some poets of the past and present. I'm your host, Erin Crittenden, and before we get started on this week's episode, I want to remind you that all of the material used in this podcast is either public domain or used with permission from the author or the author's estate. It's a fun time for all ages, so sit back, relax, and get ready to hear this week's featured poet. This week's featured poet is Mukut Borpujari. Mukut Borpujari is a graduate of English literature and also holds a master's in computer application. Based in Guwahati, Assam, India, he has a plethora of poems published in top journals, including the Canyon Voices literary magazine, published by the Arizona State University. He was also longlisted in this year's Erbacce-prize for poetry, 2024, and he is an active member of the Greenpeace Movement with a deep-rooted conviction about nature and the natural world. Apart from being an avid reader, his other hobbies include computers and internet and driving. Currently, he is working on publishing his first poetry collection, and we will be reading a few of those poems, which he submitted to us through the form at presentpoetry.com. This poem is called The Krishnachura Tree. My neighbor has decided to chop the Krishnachura tree. He's right, of course. The tree is over 20 years old, huge, sprawling and spreading over the jagged road like a giant umbrella. It's clearly a danger, tilting to the side of the house. Some feeble wind, my neighbor said, could uproot it. Every year, it sent out its bursts of orange blossoms, blooms and blooms, blooms relentlessly, through shooting flames out into the sky, more stunning than fireworks on New Year's Eve. Father, bedridden, lay motionless looking out the window, gazed at the fireworks, his head on the pillow. Might have seemed like forever to him, who used to stomp around the neighborhood, watching that tree full of gray birds, chirping, chattering, flitting here and there, and the otherworldly blazing petals rhythmically waving against the wind. My neighbor, true to his word, brought an axe and felled the tree at its stump. He was right, of course. The shoot came back the following year. Its clusters are unflinchingly parading their bursts of rebellious leaves, albeit where there was a canopy of flames, there's now just a handful here and there. One strand in particular, desperately reaching out to the window with a fistful of orange flames, where he was patiently waiting for its return. This poem is called The Outsider. Memories are breathing down inside me. Everything's slowing down to the pace of a snail. Tiptoeing across the yard, the old cat watching, the pace too slow even for him. A crack in the earth opens and roots rise up to trip me. Thirst lives in me, and the fear of thirst. Solitude and the fear of solitude. Death and the fear of death, though only it will silence me. I remember the abandoned lorries, standing on roadside, doors open. I saw through them the dry fields beyond, the owls sitting on the gatepost late in the evening, the canal and its flowing stream, cows grazing in its pasture. I was afraid I'd lose them. If I could only keep them steadfast. Long days filled me with longings, in pursuit of something exquisite that eludes me, always clumsy, never knowing the manners of the place I have lived. This poem is called February. I'm crawling out of this season of hard, cold winter that stayed long enough. The bottom of my feet kicked up dirt on the hard asphalt. When I planted a mango tree, it smelled of green earth, pulsing sun, dirt, and water. I do remember this. I pinned summer light upon my back and made no apologies for the space I took up, barely clothed and sunburned. Now, a ball of cotton in the gray sky, the sun rolls low on the horizon, hangs, then dips behind a city block. Wind howling us into the night, inside the erratic rhythm of this flickering shadows and light. I conjure up the potent sky of the longest day, seeds with a whole galaxy inside them, cicadas vibrating outside on the branches of a giant neem tree. I never expected to find myself in such a cold place. My hands dry out against the cold. I let the memory out, let it linger on the horizon, some kind of flying like a kite, again and again. I loosen the buckles of my mind to fly back in time, to the days of dried-out paddy fields and herds of cattle. I let it stay there. This poem is called Collage. Part 1. An unexpected thunder shower puts out the smoldering city, ending the heat wave abruptly. Water seeps through minute spaces between glass and window frames. Sky's tears replace dust, leaving streaks down the walls. I have little time to stand and stare. The hills turn a vibrant green. Weekends are for my newfound love. Twice I trailed the periphery of the city to lunch beside the stream for the afternoon. Once I followed a mud track to a solitary shrine. I used the branches of the dense undergrowth to pull myself to the square opening. I hardly gawked at two magpies sitting above on electric beams. I only saw their salient backs as they took flight, my unwelcome presence forcing them into the midday sky. Part 2. A neighbor through the wall plays classical music, faint and faint, over the weeks. Another learns drum sets through a merciless repetition of top 50 alternative hits. I can pretend I'm unwell. I wouldn't say a weak mundane, shifting from invisible to see it all. The yellow marigold bloomed through the cracks, searching for the sun. I turn from the sense that I know myself to the sense that I had some friends who knew me well, though I didn't know myself to them. My partner in grief hasn't slept for days. When he finally does, he wakes up eager to tell me about his dream. A furry cat leads him to his garage, where a mother owl shrieks and her babies nest. This poem is called Stoic. It's already summer, and we're getting rid of clothes, getting ready to greet the scorching days ahead, making the place airy and less cluttered. We're living on the edge, restructuring the house, getting rid of old furnitures, obsolete machineries, and funny gadgets. A small table in the kitchen for two. Our world is changing, our wardrobes mostly empty. Gone are the skinny jeans and the fancy moccasins, the wind chime and the trinkets. When someone comes to visit and admire our complete works of Yeats, the peacock feather in the open thesaurus, the mantel vase on a shelf, we say, "Take them." This is the most important time of all, the age of dissipation, knowing full well what we're divesting is, like the fragrance of a burning incense stick that lingers hours after it has been doused. An ordinary Friday afternoon when one of us stared and the other one just laughed. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Present Poetry Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to like us, leave a review, or share us on social media. If you are a poet or you know someone who is, we would love to hear from you. You can reach out to us or submit your work through our website, which is www.present-poetry.com. poetry.com. Again, that is www.present-poetry.com. We can't wait to hear from you.